What if one of the most famous burgers in the world doesn't actually look like what you're being sold? And what if that difference is big enough to end up in court? Because right now, Burger King is facing a lawsuit over the size and appearance of its Whopper, and the outcome could change how fast food is advertised everywhere. For years, fast food advertising has followed a familiar formula. You see glossy buns, perfectly melted cheese, and burgers stacked so neatly and generously that they almost look too good to be true. Most people understand that these images are carefully staged, and that the real product might not look exactly the same. But what happens when that gap between expectation and reality becomes too large to ignore? That question is now at the center of a legal battle in the United States, where Burger King is being sued by a group of customers who claim they were misled by the company's advertising. The case involves 19 plaintiffs from 13 different states, and they argue that the burgers shown in Burger King's ads are not just slightly enhanced, but significantly larger than what customers actually receive. According to the lawsuit, the Whopper appears up to 35% bigger in advertisements than it is in real life. In some comparisons, it even looks like the burger contains more than double the amount of meat. That is not just a minor visual upgrade, but a difference that could reasonably influence someone's decision to buy the product. At first, this might sound like a small issue. After all, it is just a burger. But from a legal perspective, the case raises a much bigger question about consumer trust and truth in advertising. When people buy a product based on how it is presented, there is an expectation that what they receive will at least resemble what was advertised. If that expectation is not met, the line between marketing and deception starts to blur. Burger King attempted to have the case dismissed early on, arguing that its advertising practices fall within normal industry standards, and that any differences between the ads and the actual product are simply part of how food is prepared and presented. However, a federal judge disagreed and allowed the lawsuit to move forward. In his ruling, U.S. District Judge Roy Altman said it is plausible that reasonable consumers could be misled by Burger King's advertisements. That detail matters because in many similar cases, companies successfully argue that their ads are just puffery, a legal term for exaggeration that is not meant to be taken literally. In those situations, courts often assume that consumers understand they are not seeing a completely accurate representation. But in this case, the judge suggested that Burger King's ads may go beyond simple exaggeration. If the difference between the advertised product and the actual product is large enough, it could be considered misleading, and that is why the case is continuing. What makes this situation even more interesting is that Burger King is not the only fast food company to face this kind of lawsuit. Similar claims have been made against other major chains, like McDonald's and Wendy's. However, those cases did not progress in the same way, and some were dismissed before reaching this stage. According to the judge, one possible reason for the difference is that Burger King's advertising may be more exaggerated than that of its competitors. If that is true, it could explain why this particular case is being taken more seriously and why it has been allowed to proceed. The plaintiffs in the case are not only seeking financial compensation, and they are also asking for changes in how Burger King presents its food. They want the company to use more realistic images in its advertising, so customers have a clearer understanding of what they are actually purchasing. In other words, they are not just challenging the past, they are also trying to influence how the company operates in the future. Burger King, on the other hand, maintains that it has done nothing wrong. The company argues that its burgers are made with the same ingredients shown in advertisements, and that variations in appearance are simply the result of food being prepared by hand. From their perspective, the ads are meant to showcase the product in an appealing way, which is a common practice across the entire industry. This brings the discussion back to a fundamental question. Where should the line be drawn between acceptable marketing and misleading representation? Advertising has always involved a certain level of enhancement. Food stylists use specific techniques to make products look more attractive, such as carefully arranging ingredients or adjusting lighting to highlight textures and colors. These methods are widely known and generally accepted. However, if those enhancements create an image that is significantly different from what customers actually receive, then it raises concerns about whether the advertising is still fair. The outcome of this case could help define that boundary more clearly. The lawsuit also points to a shift that allegedly took place around 2017, when Burger King began presenting its burgers so they looked larger and more filled with ingredients, even though the actual composition of the burger did not change. If this claim is proven, it could strengthen the argument that the company intentionally altered its advertising to create a more appealing but potentially misleading impression. Now that the case has been allowed to move forward, it will continue in federal court in Miami. Both sides will have the opportunity to present evidence, call witnesses, and make their arguments in detail. The plaintiffs will try to demonstrate that the differences in size and appearance were significant enough to influence consumer behavior, while Burger King will aim to show that its advertising falls within reasonable expectations and does not constitute deception. The final decision could have far-reaching consequences. If the court rules in favor of the plaintiffs, it could lead to stricter standards for how food is advertised, not only for Burger King, but for the entire fast food industry. Companies might be required to present their products more accurately, which could result in less dramatic and more realistic advertising. On the other hand, if Burger King wins the case, it could reinforce the idea that consumers are expected to understand and accept a certain level of exaggeration in advertising. That outcome would likely allow current marketing practices to continue largely unchanged. Regardless of the result, the case highlights a broader issue that extends beyond fast food. In a world where advertising plays a major role in shaping consumer decisions, the balance between persuasion and honesty is constantly being tested. People rely on visual information to make choices, and when that information is significantly altered, it can affect trust. This is why the case has attracted so much attention. It is not just about whether a burger looks bigger in an ad, but about how much consumers should be able to rely on what they see. It raises questions about expectations, fairness, and the responsibilities of companies when presenting their products. As the case moves forward, it will be closely watched by legal experts, businesses, and consumers alike. The outcome could influence future lawsuits and potentially reshape the way companies approach advertising. In the meantime, it leaves us with a simple but important thought. The next time you see a perfectly crafted burger on a screen, with every ingredient placed just right and every detail designed to catch your eye, it might be worth asking yourself how closely that image matches reality. Now, that question is not just a matter of personal curiosity, it is one that is being examined in a courtroom with implications that could reach far beyond a single sandwich.